Next, on Currents News, he was one of the most powerful leaders in the Catholic Church in America. Now, a long-awaited Vatican report on the fall of former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick has been released. Plus, it looks like the Affordable Care Act isn't going anywhere for now. The Supreme Court signaling it's unlikely to strike down the law. Then, as the Trump campaign moves ahead with legal challenges, the U.S. Attorney General wants federal prosecutors to look into voting irregularities. And another positive sign in the war against the coronavirus. A new antibody treatment gets emergency approval. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. Catholics around the world have been waiting for 2 years. The Vatican's report on 90-year-old ex-Cardinal Theodore McCarrick has finally been released. Currents News' Michelle Powers has the details.
I welcome you all to your cathedral.
He was once called Your Eminence, one of America's most prominent cardinals, but Theodore McCarrick's downfall put on the Vatican record Tuesday with a long-awaited 449-page report.
We publish the report with sorrow.
Cardinal Pietro Parolin, who leads the office that prepared the report, said it took 2 years because they had to sift through thousands of documents in the Vatican archives, investigate different dioceses, and listen to testaments from witnesses. Now complete, the report ordered by Pope Francis tries to answer 2 questions. Who knew what about McCarrick's abuses and when?
Non abbiate paura.
According to the report, now Saint John Paul II had heard rumors about McCarrick. He ordered an investigation to determine if the allegations were true. Some bishops had found that McCarrick had shared a bed with young men, but they were not sure if there was sexual misconduct. The report now considers that information passed along to the then Pope inaccurate and incomplete.
He is the one who has saved us.
The report details that McCarrick then appealed directly to the Pope's aid, insisting he was innocent. The Holy Father believed him. The Vatican arguing John Paul II's past experience in Poland regarding the use of spurious allegations against bishops to degrade the standing of the Church played a role in his willingness to believe McCarrick's denials. But that wasn't the end. New allegations surfaced in 2005. A year later, Pope Benedict forced McCarrick to resign as the Archbishop of Washington. According to the report, Pope Francis knew about Benedict's decision, but was not given any documentation regarding those allegations until years later. Believing they had been thoroughly reviewed, the Vatican report says Francis did not see the need to alter the approach that had been adopted in prior years. Things flared up again in the summer of 2018, dubbed the Summer of Hell by New York's Cardinal Timothy Dolan. That was when the Archdiocese of New York received allegations that McCarrick abused a minor.
How could a man continue to rise in the church with a background like that?
Francis took away McCarrick's red hat and removed him from the College of Cardinals. Then in August 2018, the former Vatican envoy to the United States, Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano, released a letter calling for Francis to resign, saying he informed the Pope of McCarrick's abuses in 2013. Tuesday's report says there aren't any records of the Archbishop's account. On the heels of McCarrick's allegations and other sexual abuses in Chile, the Holy Father convened the Global Summit on Protecting Children. The heads of bishop conferences from around the world thought up new legislation for both inside the Vatican and throughout the Church on mandatory reporting and bishop accountability. This report, a reflection of that.
These are pages that encourage us to reflect deeply and to ask ourselves what more we can do in the future.
Its release comes just days before the United States bishops gather virtually for their own annual meeting. Michelle Powers, Currents News.
Theodore McCarrick's misconduct was first made public in 2008 and led to his eventual removal. But his rise within the church was decades in the making. He was first ordained in 1958 in the Archdiocese of New York. 7 years later, at the age of 35, he became president of the Catholic University of Puerto Rico. In 1977, he was called back to New York and elevated to auxiliary bishop. 4 years later, named the Bishop of Metuchen. McCarrick became Archbishop of Newark in 1986, and in 2000 he was named Archbishop of Washington, D.C., where he was quickly elevated to Cardinal shortly after his installation in 2001. After the report's release, Archbishop Jose Gomez, the head of the Bishops' Conference, offered a personal apology to the victims and their families, writing, "This is another tragic chapter in the Church's long struggle to confront the crimes of sexual abuse by clergy. To McCarrick's victims and their families, and to every victim survivor of sexual abuse by the clergy, I express my profound sorrow and deepest apologies." Cardinal Timothy Dolan spoke about the McCarrick report on his radio show, saying Pope Francis kept his promise to release the full report once the investigation was complete.
He did it. He kept his promise. He released it. Once again saying, as Jesus did, the truth will set you free, and the church doesn't have any fear of the truth. It might embarrass us, it might shock us, but we're not afraid of it.
Cardinal Dolan went on to say that the report was painful to read at times, but necessary. So what does this all mean for the future of the church? The editor of Crux, John Allen, joins us now on the phone to break down the findings in this report. And John, the report's been a long time coming. We're talking allegations of not only abuse, but possible cover-ups and financial gain along the way. Why did it take so long? Where was the sense of urgency?
Well, Christine, part of the answer to that question is COVID-19. This report was essentially almost ready to go 9 months ago when the COVID pandemic first erupted here in Italy and sent things into lockdown. And so that delayed the process significantly. Another part of the answer is that along the way, additional accusers, additional information about McCarrick emerged that then had to be factored in. Also, we should say this is an extraordinarily extensive report. We're talking about 461 pages in its English version, by far the longest report that the Vatican has ever issued on a single case, 90-some interviews along the way. And so all of that helps explain it. That said, obviously the fact that the Vatican said 2 years ago that this would appear in due course, and it's taken 2 years to appear, does raise some questions among abuse victims and their advocates.
Right, and the report shows that so many people, popes, cardinals, bishops, etc., were warned about the allegations of abuse but didn't investigate. Instead, McCarrick kept moving up to more powerful positions. You said it could be due to the willful ignorance of a clerical culture. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is one of the big picture conclusions of this report in terms of trying to answer the question you just posed is because the Vatican believed McCarrick repeatedly in 2000 when he was up for promotion to the Archdiocese of Washington, and the late Cardinal John O'Connor of New York had written to the Pope's ambassador in the States, a letter that made its way to John Paul, detailing various accusations against McCarrick, but in the end, John Paul decided to promote him anyway because McCarrick explicitly denied the allegations, and in the absence of clear and convincing proof, he was given the benefit of the doubt. Now, the question is, why were McCarrick's denials taken at face value? Well, I think that is the product of a clerical culture that says he's a bishop. For God's sake, he was a cardinal. And therefore, there's just a higher standard in terms of raising concerns about such a figure than there would be for an ordinary person.
Now, Catholics have been looking forward to this report. Do you think it gives us the answers we wanted, or does it fall short?
Well, that, of course, Christine, is in the eye of the beholder. I certainly think you have to give the Vatican an A for effort because this is an extraordinarily exhaustive and comprehensive treatment. That said, some are saying they have found those actions insufficient. I suspect that there will also be some who are skeptical of what they see as an effort to insulate Pope Francis from blame in this report and lay the lion's share of responsibility at the feet of his predecessors, John Paul II and Benedict XVI. So if the question is everyone going to be satisfied? No, but it certainly is night and day different from what we used to get when people would ask the Vatican the question, what did you know and when did you know it?
All right, absolutely. John Allen, editor at Crux, thanks for being with us.
You bet, Christine.
If you'd like to read the full Vatican report on former Cardinal McCarrick, just head to thetablet.org. The full document, as well as expert reporting and analysis, will all be there for you. Members of the Australian media accused of violating a gag order during the Cardinal George Pell trial are on trial themselves this week. 18 people, along with 12 media organizations, face prison sentences or fines if found guilty. The controversial injunction against media coverage of Pell's sex abuse trial was issued in June of 2018. In December of 2018, Cardinal Pell was convicted. That conviction was overturned last spring. U.S. Attorney General William Barr is calling for investigations into election misconduct. This as the Trump campaign moves forward with its own legal challenges. Barr told federal prosecutors they are allowed to look into voting irregularities even before election results are certified. A Justice Department official quit in protest. Meanwhile, the projected winner of the presidential election, Joe Biden, is claiming victory and today commented on the fact that President Trump won't concede.
I just think it's an embarrassment, quite frankly. The only thing that, how can I say this tactfully? I think it will not help the president's legacy.
Biden says at the end of the day, it's all going to come to fruition on January 20th. This as Democrats hold on to the House, clinching the 218 seats needed to remain in control of the lower chamber. A Minneapolis priest is crediting Biden for giving a song he wrote more than 40 years ago a new life. When the former vice president spoke on Saturday, he referenced the hymn On Eagle's Wings.
I know that it has touched many people, and I am incredibly grateful for that. I actually believe God is using it to touch people's hearts in different situations.
Father Michael Jonkis says his phone exploded after Biden recited the words to his song, and he says he hopes the lyrics bring a divided country together. President Trump's evangelical religious advisor has died. Hope Christian Church in Maryland announced the passing of Bishop Harry Jackson on Monday, but released no other details. Jackson was a prominent conservative activist. According to his Twitter page, he led prayer at the White House during Easter weekend. A memorial service for Jackson is in the works. He was 66 years old. Today, the Supreme Court began hearing oral arguments in the latest legal challenge to the Affordable Care Act. But despite conservatives now having a majority on the high court, initial indications signal it might not be going anywhere anytime soon. Currents News' Emily Druby reports.
But that's not our job.
That's the voice of Chief Justice John Roberts responding to the idea of the Supreme Court striking down the Affordable Care Act. The High Court hearing oral arguments today on the latest suit against the act, asking the court to strike down the entire 2010 law due to an amendment added in 2017, which took away the penalty for not having health insurance. Republican state officials backed by the Trump administration argue because a key provision is now unconstitutional, the whole law should fall. It is believed the conservative majority on the court could make this a shoo-in. However, Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Brett Kavanaugh seem to signal they would cast aside the challenged mandate, but leave the rest of the act standing.
I think it's hard for you to argue that Congress intended the entire act to fall if the mandate were struck down.
This is a very straightforward case for severability under our precedents, meaning that we would excise the mandate and leave the rest of the act in place.
The law has survived two previous challenges, one in 2012 and one in 2015, but since then, 3 new conservative judges have been added to the bench.
I, Amy Coney Barrett,
including Trump's latest pick, Justice Amy Coney Barrett. President Donald Trump has been outspoken in his desire to get rid of the act, also known as Obamacare, while former Vice President Joe Biden has been a staunch defender of it, further promising to protect Americans' health care during a Tuesday press conference.
This argument will determine whether health care coverage of more than 20 million Americans who acquired under the Affordable Care Act will be ripped away.
And while today's arguments makes it appear the act is likely to survive its latest encounter with the High Court, there's no way of knowing for sure how the vote will go until the official decision is handed down. That's expected to happen towards the end of June. Christine?
All right, Emily, we keep hearing that all eyes are on this case. It was a big topic during the Barrett confirmation hearings, too. Why is that?
I mean, of course, one of the points is because it'll affect so many Americans. Healthcare activists are warning 20 million people could lose their insurance. But it's also really interesting because you're right. It was a big focus of Democrats during Justice Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation hearings last month. But despite being grilled hard on the topic, she refused to discuss the case. Now, Dems like Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer kept saying that a vote for Barrett would rip away healthcare from millions. But I have to say, Christine, she was tough. She even questioned if the states had the right to bring the suit in the first place.
Wow. All right, Emily, thank you. There's a lot more news headed your way. The FDA has just approved a new antibody treatment that could help coronavirus sufferers avoid a trip to the hospital. We'll explain. Then kidnapped and held for more than 2 years, Pope Francis meets with the missionary who survived the harrowing ordeal. And honoring the memory of Navy chaplain Vincent Capodanno, the new film that retells his incredible story of heroism and faith is coming up.
Now you can help us put your faith in the news. The next time you capture a newsworthy event, send us your pictures or video. It's easy. Go to netny.tv/send us, and you may see your submission on Currents News.
More good news in the fight against COVID-19. The FDA has approved a new coronavirus treatment for emergency use. The antibody bamlanivimab is supposed to treat mild to moderate virus infections in adults and children. A study found it could ease symptoms and lower the risk of hospitalization. The government has already struck a $375 million deal with the company for 300,000 doses of the treatment. It should be free for patients. Scientists and doctors continue to race to better understand COVID-19 and how to fight this pandemic. Now researchers are discovering that a previously held belief that hot and humid weather might help stop the spread is proving to not be the case. Meredith Wood tells us more.
As the U.S. braces for the next wave of the pandemic heading into the winter months, new research reveals the relationship between weather and the coronavirus.
Weather is neither a friend nor a foe. The choices you're going to make socially and personally, they will determine your risk.
Dr. Deb Niogi, professor of geosciences at the University of Texas, Austin, led the study and says it doesn't matter if it's hot or cold outside. The spread of COVID-19 depends almost entirely on human behavior.
It essentially brings a message of hope that just because we are going to get into a colder season does not mean it is going to be much more messier.
The data shows that individual actions like taking trips and spending time away from home were the top reasons for COVID-19 growth. And temperature and climate really did not have an influence when compared to other factors. Dr. Niogi says right now personal choices and social behaviors are the best ways to lower risks of exposure to the virus.
I will look at what's data saying, what science is saying, and I will hope for a dash of good luck.
I'm Meredith Wood.
Turning now to the Vatican, where the Holy Father met with a missionary who was kidnapped in Niger and held for more than 2 years. The Pope greeted the 59-year-old priest by shaking and kissing his hand. Francis had followed Father Pierluigi Maccali's journey closely, even inviting the church to pray for him and his liberation. During their meeting, Father Maccali asked the Holy Father to pray for the Catholic Church in Niger. The Pope has been praying for the people of Central America as they struggle under hurricane-turned-tropical storm Eta. During his general audience, the Holy Father took note of a Honduras flag carried by one of the pilgrims in the crowd. He then prayed that God welcome the deceased, comfort their families, and sustain those most in need. Honduras is in dire straits because of Eta. Authorities say more than 36,000 families in the northwest part of the country have been affected by the natural disaster. The federal government has not been able to provide shelter to residents who have been displaced, forcing people to sleep on the streets. But they have promised to deliver 13,000 bags of food to people in need. And in honor of Veterans Day, Net TV will be airing a very special documentary that celebrates the life of Navy chaplain Lieutenant Vincent Capodanno, a fearless hero and man of God who stood side by side with soldiers on the battlefields of Vietnam. Here's a look.
Any little bit of joy or happiness that we have here is but a taste of the eternal happiness we're going to have in heaven. But in order to achieve that eternal life in heaven, we must go through the process that we have come to call death.
This is going to be long and it's going to be hard. They basically told us, why are you not coming back?
Father Capodanno's sacrifices have put him on the path to sainthood. And you can watch the award-winning The Field Afar Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. right here on Net TV in honor of Veterans Day. We'll also be talking with one of the filmmakers, Tim Moriarty, about Father Capodanno's legacy on tomorrow's newscast, so be sure to tune in tomorrow at 7. Still to come on Currents News, putting faith into action. The Austrian priest who opened a bakery in war-torn Syria is now helping feed more than 10,000 people in need and putting people to work. His story is next. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Syria has been plagued by years of war, famine, and now the coronavirus. But one Austrian priest is trying to help its people survive and thrive. He opened a bakery just outside of Damascus that's helping feed thousands. Claudia Torres has the story.
You're witnessing a small miracle taking place in Syria thanks to the tenacity of this Melkite priest who lives in Vienna. Despite the war and the pandemic, Hana Gonaim managed to build this bakery about 12 miles away from Damascus. He will employ more than 40 people and produce high-quality bread for about 10,000 families.
We are very interested that the Christians don't leave their home because Syria is the home of the Christianity. Christians in Syria need our help. We can help them through money to build schools or hospitals or to make some work for the youth.
With this bakery, he's given them employment and a chance for a better future. The bakery produces high-quality bread, and Father Gonaim uses the revenue from sales to pay his employees' salaries. Some of the bread produced is given to poor families in the area, be they Muslim or Christian.
Bread belongs to everyone, and Jesus says, give them to eat. And he didn't say only for a group, but everyone.
The bakery will guarantee work and food to the city of Maruneh and surrounding towns. The property belongs to the Melkite parish, as the Melkite Greek Catholic Patriarchate of Damascus is sponsoring the project. It's been sustained thanks to hundreds of donations, big and small, from people in Austria, Germany, Hungary, and Sweden. Now that the bakery is open, Father Hana Gonaim is looking for help to launch an agricultural project that will also offer employment, a future, and dignity to many other young Christians in the region.
That was Claudia Torres reporting. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.